Picture this. You step outside. The sky has gone a strange flat gray. And then something falls from it that you have never seen before. It lands on your skin and disappears. You have no word for this. No memory of anything like it. And neither did your ancestors, the very first time it happened to them. What did they do? What does a human brain do when it encounters something it has absolutely no category for? To answer this, you need to go back roughly 2 million years, to a population of early hominins migrating slowly out of the warm equatorial regions of Africa and into the unfamiliar terrain of higher latitudes. For generation after generation, their entire understanding of weather had been built around rain, heat, and seasonal dryness. Nothing in their inherited knowledge prepared them for snow. Anthropologist Rick Potts, director of the Human Origins Program at the Smithsonian Institution, has spent decades studying how early humans adapted to dramatically shifting environments. His research on what he calls variability selection shows something fascinating. Your ancestors did not survive because they were built for one specific climate. They survived because their brains were built to handle the unknown. Flexibility, not specialization, was the evolutionary advantage that let early humans push into entirely new environments, including ones with snow, ice, and freezing temperatures they had never experienced before. So when that first snowfall happened, you are not looking at panic. You are looking at something much more interesting. Curiosity wired directly into survival circuitry. Here is what almost certainly happened first. Stillness. Psychologist and anthropologist Sarah H. Ardui, in her extensive work on early human cognition, points out that novelty triggers a very specific neurological sequence. Before fear, before excitement, there is orienting. The brain stops everything else it is doing to focus entirely on the unknown stimulus. Your ancestors would have frozen mid-motion, eyes locked upward, tracking the white shapes falling from a sky that, moments before, had simply been the source of rain or sun. Then comes contact. Someone reaches out a hand. This is not braveness. This is one of the oldest exploratory behaviors primates possess. Touch is how early hominins gathered information about anything unfamiliar. A new fruit. A strange insect. A glowing ember. The hand goes out before the mind has formed a single conscious thought about what it is doing. And the snowflake melts. Imagine the confusion in that moment. Something solid, something that fell from the sky with visible weight and shape, simply vanishes the instant it touches warm skin. There is no precedent for this in their entire sensory vocabulary. Rain falls and stays wet. Stones fall and stay solid. This new thing falls, and then disappears entirely, as if it was never there. Neuroscientist and prediction error researcher Carl Friston has shown that the human brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. It is constantly generating expectations about the world and then comparing those expectations to what is actually happening. When reality violates a prediction in a dramatic way, the brain experiences what is called a prediction error, and that error generates one of the most powerful states a brain can enter. Not fear, not joy, pure focused attention. This is almost certainly what happened next among that first group encountering snow. Children would have been drawn first. Children's brains are wired with the highest tolerance for novelty and the strongest drive to explore it. They would have run forward, hands open, mouths open, trying to catch the falling white shapes before they vanished. Adults would have watched, partly amused, partly wary, doing what every social primate does in moments of uncertainty, monitoring the group's most trusted members for cues about whether this new thing was dangerous. This is a behavior called social referencing, studied extensively in developmental psychology by researchers like Joseph Campos. Before deciding how to react to something unfamiliar, social animals look to the most experienced and trusted individuals in their group. If the elders showed calm curiosity rather than alarm, that calm would have spread through the entire group within minutes. Snow was not a threat. It was simply strange. But there is a deeper question buried in this moment. Why does this matter? Why does it matter what a small group of early humans did during a snowfall tens of thousands of years ago? Because this moment, repeated thousands of times across thousands of unfamiliar landscapes, is the foundation of something extraordinary. It is the foundation of your ability to encounter the unknown without immediately retreating from it. Every time your ancestors faced something with no precedent, fire, lightning, the ocean, the cold, and chose investigation over pure fear, they were laying down the neurological and behavioral architecture that eventually allowed humans to leave Africa entirely and inhabit nearly every environment on Earth. The capacity to look directly at the unfamiliar and lean toward it rather than away from it is, quite literally, one of the reasons you exist. And there is something almost poetic in what likely happened in the hours after that first snowfall. Evidence from cold-adapted hunter-gatherer cultures across history shows a consistent pattern. Novel environmental phenomena did not just provoke curiosity. They became stories. They became explanations passed down through generations, often involving spirits, sky beings, or symbolic meaning attached to the strange white substance falling from above. Anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss extensively documented how early human cultures consistently transformed unexplained natural events into mythological frameworks, a process that allowed groups to mentally organize the unknown and pass survival-relevant information to their children in memorable form. So somewhere around a fire that night, in a language with no written record and no surviving trace, someone almost certainly tried to explain what had happened that day. The sky had opened. White flakes had fallen. They were cold and soft, and they disappeared the moment you touched them. Maybe they called it the breath of something larger than themselves. Maybe they simply called it strange and beautiful and left it at that. What you can say with confidence is this: your ancestors did not run. They did not collapse into helpless confusion. They reached out. They watched each other. They learned in real time that the world was bigger and stranger than what they already knew, and that this was not, by itself, something to fear. The next time snow falls where you are, and you watch a flake land on your hand and disappear, you are repeating an experience as old as your species. The same flicker of fascination. The same brief pause where the world becomes, for a moment, completely unfamiliar. Your ancestors looked up at that same astonishment. And instead of turning away from it, they reached out their hands. That single decision, made by people whose names will never be known, is part of the reason you are capable of wonder at all.